Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Despite vocal support from the public, from civil society, and from almost all political parties for a minimum 30% women representation in Dewan Rakyat, however, the reality is only 14% or 14.8%, if I want to be precise, 14.8% of our members of parliament are women. Will GE15 prove to be the turning point for gender equality and women's representation in the country's legislative bodies? My first guest tonight is Professor Emerita Tan Sri Dr. Sharifah Hafsah Said Hassan Shahabuddin. She is the president of the National Council of Women's Organisation. It's better known by its acronym NCWO. Prof. Sharifah, thank you for joining me on the show today. Now, I do want to state that the unfortunate reality is that women face multiple obstacles when it comes to participating in political life. And each of those obstacles have demands a different type of solution, the ways it needs to be addressed. But can we begin there in our conversation tonight? What are some of the obstacles that the NCWO has identified in this regard? What are the barriers for women to participate in political life?
Yep. At least 4 or 5. I think the first set of obstacles really begin from early childhood, the socialization process of girls. That's really reinforcing the stereotyping of patriarchy. And this culture is where girls are supposed to be in the home, take care of the home, raise children, do the household chores, and while men go out, work, and become leaders in the community. So this mindset um, is passed down from generation to generation. So people have this idea, this view that the woman's place is in the home rather than outside, even though that barrier is being broken bit by bit. But when it comes to the crunch, when they have to select, for example, and choose, they still have this mindset that the woman maybe should be at home, and then they choose the man. So that's one obstacle, and that's a public perception, and the way we know this for a long time. So the way we have to go to do this is a long term effort to educate the public, to make them realize that stereotyping is not a very healthy practice, and that girls do have a role in society, and they can do a good job. And we have history, and we have studies to show that they can do a good job. But this has to be broken down, and but gradually this is being accepted. Like government said, like a 30% target for women in decision making positions. And this is also translated into the private sector, and organizations like Bursa do things like, you must have women in the corporate boards and so on. So that barrier is gradually being broken down. But so that's the public perception, and this is translated into the workplace as well. When they have to select, they select the male whom they think should be the leader. The second part, I think, is because of the socialization process, the women themselves accept this. So they form a psychological barrier. So to play a role in politics and in leadership positions, if you have this psychological barrier that you cannot be a leader, then you lack the confidence, and you don't move forward, you don't project yourself, though you're very competent, and people don't notice you. And when people don't notice you, they don't select you, okay, because they don't know what you can do. So that's one of the things that we need to do, is to break this psychological barrier that women have, and that's deterring them and really bringing down their confidence to assume leadership position. I have a lot of experience when I was vice chancellor. When we want to give positions to the women, they say no, 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 give it to the men. I think they can do a better job. But what you must do is you really have to mentor, you have to call them and show them that you have confidence in them, they are competent. So this sort of activity must happen within the political parties and within the women's wings. They must coach, they must mentor the younger ones. And also, they must take the initiative to get involved with civil society work, for example, where they can show their leadership and build their confidence. So I think
Right.
this is the second set. Yeah.
Okay, if I may just interject there very quickly, what you've pointed out seems to be kind of cultural and socialization issues that prohibit or hinder women from participating in political life. Are there structural reforms that can be put into place that can help overcome some of these cultural and socialization barriers? What can be done? Because if we're waiting for society to change, to fight the patriarchy, it will take generations.
Well, one example is like when the government set the policy or the target or a statement that says that at least 30% women in decision making positions, and then we have KSUs and so on being appointed, women being appointed, and then we have in the corporate boards. That's structural. That's dealing with policy. But in the political parties, for example, when we had the forum, we realized that they have a structure of their own. They have in UMNO is Majelis Tertinggi, in CCC, in DAP, and so on. So they have a structure within the party. And if they don't set at least 30% policy for women to be in that structure, then we are not going to get a lot of women candidates, because the candidates will come from these positions first. Yeah, if they hold those positions, chances are they will be selected. And then
Right.
again, with the divisions and so on. These are structural issues that need to be addressed.
What I've also noticed, just in speaking to some female politicians, is that there's also an element of tokenism within political parties, where they field female candidates often in areas or seats that aren't winnable, but to just ensure, it's like a checklist to ensure that there's female representation in their lineup. Is that something that you've come across? And
yes,
how do you
I think that happens. And I hope this PRU15 will be the turning point, because this PRU15 has got what we call, for the women at least, we have formed what we call Pantau PRU15. We are going to see what the political parties are doing. They have promised at least 30%. At least some of them have come out very, very vocal about it. Even saying some they want to fill MBs and so on. Anyway, it's left to be seen, right? So what we're going to do is to hold them accountable for this. If you say that you are going to do it, we are going to look at the seats. First, we are going to look at your manifesto. Do you have gender? Are you gender sensitive? Are you valuing gender in your manifesto? We would like to look at that. Secondly, we will look number of women fielded. Then we will look at the seats. Then we will get the people in the Pantau PRU15 who are experts, who are political scientists. They will know which seats are safe for whom. And if we see women being fielded in seats from a party, in seats that are not so winnable, we are going to hold them accountable. We will say, look, I know you fielded 40% are women, but where are they? They are not going to be in the legislature. We are saying 30%, at least 30% fielded, 30% translated into 30% in the legislature. That means we want the seats to be winnable seats, not just tokenism. There's another form of tokenism, sometimes they just put their cronies or nepotism, to fill up, because they can still control.
Proxies.
Yeah.
Proxies.
So we don't want that too. We are going to watch. We want really competent women who've got track record, and we know they can win, and they should win to be fielded this time. We are going to watch this time. So I hope it's a turning point.
Yeah, wonderful. Pantau PRU15, do you foresee challenges in the monitoring process? I ask because, again, we as a country set wonderful targets and we have great blueprints, and when it comes to execution is when we sometimes fall. And also impact monitoring of progress. For instance, you pointed out the 30% women's representation in leadership positions. The question is the public watching? Is the public holding to account companies who do not, or companies who subscribe to tokenism, or putting on women just to check the list? Do you find issues with
I agree
monitoring?
with you, because the public as such, even voters today, and we are going all out to explain why it's important to have this gender diversity. What value does it add? It's not just about having women. It's about having a better Malaysia. It's having a mature democracy which is inclusive. Now, if you can't start with inclusivity being gender inclusive, you're not going to have a better Malaysia, And we have seen, during times of crisis, that there are a certain type of leadership is required, not the authoritarian type of leadership, but a more collaborative, affiliative, caring leadership. The features that were characteristics said to be feminine, to care for the family. That's the very characteristic that is now becoming the strength for the current leadership, for the current world. The world that we're living in is not a rosy world. It is a world filled with all kinds of crises. We go from crisis to crisis, and we need this kind of leadership. And I think if we can educate the public to say that if we have more like this to have a balanced group of people governing the country, we are going to be a better Malaysia, not just in terms of decision making, but also economically, raising the GDP and so on, so socially, economically, culturally, it will be a better country for us if we have the inclusivity in terms of gender.
Well, that's
We have
definitely.
we have to educate the public.
Okay. So very quickly, how do you go about educating the public?
Yeah. So now we are working with the media for PRU15. PRU15 is such a short period, so we have like 3 phases. We have the before they select the candidates, we go all out to say why we want 30%. Okay, so that the political parties are listening to us. Hopefully they listen and they put. If they don't, we are going to hold them in the second phase, very accountable, because we are going to analyze, and see how they have performed. And also during the election, we are hoping that the women who become candidates, we can support them in terms of advice, because we got a lot of professional people in Pantau PRU15 who can give all kinds of support and advice to the candidates if they want. We can also give you the issues. How do you address the issues? If they're local or national or global issues. I think the women need to be very conversant and must know how to articulate. I think you have to show to the public, show to the voters you are competent and we are willing to help. There are some who are saying also that, maybe we can even help with posters, what you should put on the posters, what you should not put on the posters, to attract the public and portray a better picture of the woman candidate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for speaking with me. That was Professor Emerita Tan Sri Dr. Sharifah Habsah Said Hassan Shahabuddin from the National Council of Women's Organisations. I'm going to take a quick break here and consider this. I'll be back with more on this topic. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris. As mentioned earlier in the show tonight, we're looking at the realities women face, the multiple obstacles to participating in political life. But now we want to kind of zoom in on the role of political parties. How much does exclusion or chauvinism at the party level hinder women from rising through the ranks within the party or even contesting in elections? Joining me now is Associate Professor Dr. Umu Atiyah Ahmad Zakwan. She's a senior lecturer at University Utara Malaysia. Dr. Umu, thank you for joining me on the show. What role do you think political parties play in addressing some of the barriers barriers to more representation and participation of women in politics and also in governance?
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Astro, for inviting me to join the conversation tonight. I think it is very timely for us to discuss about this issue. The nomination period is coming very near, and everybody is experiencing the heat, including us, right? Yes. When we talk about political party, I think I do not know. Maybe all of us are actually aware of the importance of the political party. Yeah, because political party. Let me just refresh a bit lah. Political party is very, very important because it is the gatekeeper. It is the gatekeeper for women, for the inclusion of women or the exclusion of women, in the leadership making position. Because why? Political party nominate candidates, isn't it? Right, men or women. So they decide who they are, how many of them, and also they appoint those. If they win the election, there will be the government, and they will appoint who are the cabinet members, and they will also appoint those in the board of directors. They decide the agenda of the nation. They set policy. So political party is actually very, very important. So that's why when you ask about this question, how political party can play role, if I get your question correctly, how political party can play role in increasing the number of women. Well, they can play a role very directly. For instance, in nominating women, they can nominate more women. So now we are actually looking very closely, we are observing very closely how many women will be coming from each political party, because we have been rallying this for so many years, Melissa, right? I mean, yeah, we see on the ground there are a lot of talented women, even in their own respective party, but however, it is not surface. So from our experience, the Malaysian experience, from my understanding and my knowledge, only two political party, unfortunately, have written commitment on gender equality in their party, which is PKR as well as DAP. So they have written commitment, which is translated in their constitution, party constitution. So for the PKR, it is stated that they're supposed to have 30% of women in the party top leadership.
Right.
Yeah, whereas for DAP, they reserved 30% of candidates, election candidates supposed to be women. So these
Okay.
are, yeah, among the measures that political party can adopt, Melissa.
Well, but almost all political parties have a women's wing. What I've noticed is that the women's wing is often used as the kind of machinery, right? So when you need the grassroots support, you need help in organizing and putting things together. That's when the women's wing comes in. How do we get political parties to change that mindset? Because again, you see the women do the work within the party machinery, yet they're not being fielded at the top level, or even in seats that are considered winnable.
Yeah. So this issue that you raise is very, very important. And, if we also find some very few actually political party do not have wing, like PSM, Party Socialist Malaysia, they do not have wing. So everybody is equal. Or you also can see MCA, they don't have a male or female youth wing. Everybody is clumped under one group, which is now headed by a female. So actually, there is a pro and cons. Well, if you look into the positive sides, I think we need there is a positive advantage on this having wing. For instance, yeah, because like deliberation of issues will be more thoroughly when you have a specific wing to deal with it, because we know that political party is very important in setting agenda, in uh, producing policies, for the nation. So I think wing will be a very good platform to really digest, deliberate issues from the ground, because we know political party members, women and men, but I'm speaking on the context of women, they are very close, with the people on the ground. So whatever voices on the ground, whatever personal voices will be public, right? Will be political, because it is being brought up by this women wing. At the same time, it will be a very close tailored a training platform for these young women, to lead. But at the same time, there is a disadvantage as well, because political party in Malaysia is very hierarchical. To be able to go up to the top will take you ages, right? There are lots of stages, and it is so hierarchical, it's so feudalistic. So I think while we wanted to dismiss wings, we also need to have some reservation and a close analysis of what is actually the best option, right? Not to dismiss entirely, but to make it work. So that's why I'm thinking, Melissa, I'm thinking intervention in terms of legislation is very important, because well, maybe I'm a bit of proponent of wing. Yeah, yeah, because I've talked to them, I've seen them. They're still the young ladies lah, of course. They're still like experiencing, but they wanted to go into politics. So I think this wing will be a good preparatory platform for them. But what we wanted to ensure is that there is a clear, guaranteed highway, to go to the top. Like we have to ensure that at the top there must be, like I mentioned, like we always speak about quota.
Correct.
There must be a specific quota for this wing to be positioned in the top. Top.
Is there anything that the public can do, that civil society can do? I'm just wondering whether sometimes internal party matters often feel outside of the layperson, the public's domain. So how can the public pressure political parties to increase their women's representation, fielding women candidates? And I ask this because it's so important. Coming up to nomination day, we want to see gender equality on the ballot. So on the ballot paper. So what role is there for the public like you and I?
Yeah, exactly. So I think, if let me just bring a little bit about my research, that we are still actually conducting this research. The preliminary finding shows that a younger generation are more susceptible to women as leaders, and the non-Malay community are more susceptible also to having women as leaders. But overall, men, women, Malay or non-Malay, are susceptible to having women as leaders. Meaning to say, public is actually ready to have women as leaders. There is no reluctance whatsoever. Maybe there is a tiny portion of population who do not do that, but majority of us are okay. So how do we take off from that, right? Yeah. So I think we have to put more voices, more noise, whatever you want to call it, to show that now we are so ready, to have more women in politics. Because I think public as whole, we are so tired of how the political culture, how political is being conducted in Malaysia. So I wanted that's what we are doing now, under Pantau PRE 15. We, as a part of a large civil society, you can find NGO, you can find academics, you can find film producer, you can find researcher. All of us are coming together to really push and make the sound bigger, to say that we need more women as leaders. I think the present is women, not the future is women. The present.
I'm with you there. Both present and future
Yeah.
is female. Very, very quickly, Dr. Umu.
You mentioned Pantau PRE 15. Can you tell me specifically, apart from just seeing more women candidates being fielded, what will you be watching for in terms of a bigger picture?
All right. So what we wanted to see in the post women leadership forum that we had previously, we saw several political party pledge, to nominate at least 30% of women as election candidate. We want to see that, right? We wanted to see that. And then we also wanted to see very closely the incumbent MPs, those who really make change before, right? So we wanted to see whether they are going to be renominated. We also wanted to see the new faces, of course, their background. We wanted to help to make sure that people know about them, because like we see sometimes the coverage of media are always biased, often biased, towards women candidate. They always talk about family, how they dress, how they look, instead of looking at their mission, their aspiration to be shared to the public. So we are looking
Definitely.
closely to that. Yes.
Yeah, I think the media definitely has a role to play in being more gender sensitive when in the reporting of the elections. But thank you so much for joining me on the show today. That was Associate Professor Dr. Umu Atia Ahmad Zakwan from University Utara Malaysia. And that's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching and good night.